Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So I've got another classic album inspection for you today, a real guitar favourite of mine and many other people. Whitesnake's 1987 album, released 35 years ago today, March 31st, 1987. The US release was a week later. So originally it's just called Whitesnake, this album, because it was kind of a reboot really for the band. But later on it kind of got renamed 1987, I think, because of the symbols underneath. So yeah, basically where's Whitesnake at this point? And there's a long gap from this and the album before Slide It In. And there's basically two mixes of Slide It In. There's the Martin Birch production, original production, which has a kind of big, kind of open Bonham-esque snare from Cozy Powell, which is quite cool. Then the Keith Olsen mix is kind of tighter for the American market. It's tighter, more compressed. It has chorus on the rhythm guitars. It's got more of a radio mix. And John Sykes contributes a little bit of guitar on that. So basically the Slide It In album, the original one, has Mel Gallion playing guitar, doing a lot of co-writing, and then Sykes joins. He actually is involved in Mel Gallion's accident and mangles his hand. And then the album's remixed for the US market. And I actually like both mixes of this album. They're both different. But I think what's interesting, I think Whitesnake are already in transition. I think there's this thing that people think, oh, Coverdale goes away and he comes back with big hair. But you listen to the kind of lyrics on Slide It In, it's kind of more getting more hair metal. It's a little more Zeppelin-y, some of the stuff. But I think on that album, Coverdale's already starting to sing in a higher register, I think this is what fucks his voice. So if you listen to Coverdale and Deep Purple, Glenn Hughes did the higher stuff. Coverdale's a low mid to mid range, and occasionally tipping into some higher mids. But what he does on the Slide in album, he hits like higher mids more of the time and goes up to the top of the tenor range, which is more, it's harder to sing up there. He's doing some more screamy stuff. So he's already starting to flirt with that sound. Then there's the Keith Olsen mix, which polishes it for radio more, and it gives Slide It In a gold record. So Whitesnake are already making inroads in the US. While they're doing this, why does Coverdale want to do this? They've had success in Europe. They've been big in Britain. They can play the Hammersmith Odeon for 2 nights in Newcastle City Hall and stuff like that. They're popular in Germany and parts of Europe, but it's basically not enough for Coverdale. I think it's expensive running bands, and if he's got a 6-piece band, well, there's him and then he's paying 5 people. He needs to be selling records, and if you're getting sort of silver discs in the UK and Germany and places like that, and you're selling hundreds of thousands of albums, but you're not going over the 1 million, 2 million mark, it's difficult to run a band at a high level with production values and videos and stuff that you want. I think Coverdale obviously gone as far as he couldn't get any bigger in the UK, really. Whitesnake were a regular feature on Top of the Pops, even up and including, I think the Saints and Sinners as Here I Go Again was on Top of the Pops and stuff like that. So the other thing we're getting Sykes in is, basically he's got noticed in the Tigers of Pantang. Then Thin Lizzy have split up. If Thin Lizzy had split up, John Sykes would have stayed with, I think, because he loved Phil Lynott. But I think it's that thing, Sykes is a golden god, but he makes impact. And I think Coverdale realises as fine a guitar players as Mickey Moody, Bernie Miles and Mel Galley are, they're traditional blues-based players. And if he was going to compete in the 80s, he needed a Whitley Guitar Hero and to change the sound. So basically what happens on this is they set about writing, I think at some chateau or somewhere in France. I'll need to check my notes, but he gets a sinus infection, Coverdale. He has to have surgery, so he can't do anything for 6 months. Either prior to this or around this time, so I'm just looking at my notes here, they go out to Little Mountain in Vancouver and they work with Bob Rock and start sort of work there. I think Mike Stone might be involved in the production again at this point. Mike Stone gets co-production on this. But Sykes, Bob Rock helps John Sykes achieve the guitar sound he wants. So one of the things on this album is how huge the rhythm guitar sound is. It sounds absolutely massive, and I don't think there's ever really been a guitar sound like it, ever. And the way they did it, the way Sykes accomplished it is by basically using a pitch shifter. So this is what I think. I'm not sure how many tracks. It could be quadruple tracked, it could be triple tracked. But let's just say, for example, it's double tracked either side. And then maybe it's got a central track, but that is detuned a bit. Or each of these tracks, one's in your standard tuning, the other one goes into pitch shifter and is detuned like what we call a cent. And maybe the other one's detuned another cent. Now this choruses the sound. So when the guitars are slightly out of tune with each other, they're not so out of tune that they would kind of sound horrible, but it makes everything sound big. Now Muse uses technique as well. I've read stuff with Keith Olsen kind of saying, oh, Sykes' guitar was horribly out of tune and there's problems and guitars had to be redone. And he kind of inferring that Sykes didn't play those guitars, but I think that's bullshit. I think he's basically having fun. We do know there's a couple of guitar solos by other guitarists, and we'll come to that. But basically, you know, through trial and error, they achieve this like massive sound. And this is the most successful part of the album sonically. I think the drum sound's shit, frankly. The snare sound for an album of this calibre, this time, it's really bishy. I mean, Ainsley Dunswell is an excellent drummer, but there is bits where, if you listen to Still of the Night, apparently there's bits where they go out of time, and it's, you know, it's like hell to edit and cut the tape and put together. But good bass sound. Neil Murray plays the bass. Coverdale's vocals are good, although he's doing the screaming thing, which I don't think was to his advantage. Well, it was in terms of Sony Records. But basically, there's quite a lot of different versions of his running orders, so I'm just kind of going off the European one with a couple of bonuses. You'd have to correct me what didn't appear on the original 9-track album. So the 9-track album's 42 minutes. If you get the kind of 2 extra tracks, 11 tracks, it's 53 minutes. Opens with Still of the Night, this version. It's not really a track. There's no point in me, going massively on about this. I would recommend people listen to the remix off the Rock album that's been done recently. It's fucking classic. I never tire of listening to it. I think Sykes' rhythm guitar's incredible. I think the middle section with the string arrangement, which is kind of written by Coverdale on the keyboard when they were sort of sketching out the album. It's actually based on an old song he wrote with Richie Blackmore, apparently, Coverdale. I love the way it comes out the middle section in Sykes' solo. It's so short, it's about 15 seconds. He does some incredible shredding. It's amazing. He uses those great inverted chords beforehand. And then the end section's great with those inversions. I just think it's a masterclass. It's one of the great guitar songs, this. If you wanted to play something to someone and go, right, this is, here's a great rhythm guitar track, here's a great solo, here's a great piece of songwriting. I think it's all-time, one of those all-time tracks, this. Next, it goes into Bad Boys. So what you notice with this, it starts with a classic Sykes woo. So Still of the Night. He does the same on this. I'll try and remember how many tracks John Sykes does that. But he has a way of kind of covering 2 strings. Bad Boys. So I think what I noticed about this when I first heard the track was like how immature. I mean, Coverdale's always some kind of sex lyrics, But this, like, was that classic hair metal thing, like Judas Priest ended up doing this, where he's talking about riding around on motorbikes when he's like 35 chasing girls. I mean, but it worked. I mean, I like the track. Sykes does some cool kind of double picked lines on this, which other bands are copying in. J.K. Lee does as well. Aussie stuff around this time. It's got a great Sykes solo on this, and it's quite a funny tone, very top endy but really full. Awesome shredding. I like the track, I like the harmony lines on the chorus, which when he had the twin guitars in the band later on, Coverdale, when he went out with Viv Campbell, Adrian Vandenberg and beyond, they would do that. So I've always liked this track, but I could understand old school Whitesnake fans thinking, what the fuck is this? I mean, Still of the Night's got a bluesy riff, and you can, if you've had the Slide It In album, you can probably see, oh yeah, but Bad Boys is a pure hair metal track. So that's fine for someone like me in 1987, because I'm into all that stuff. But if you like Ready and Willing, you're probably like, what the fuck is that? Then you got Give Me All Your Love. Again, listen to the remix on the Rock album on this. Again, the bottom end's much punchier. The drums are much better. Probably not as successful as the Still of the Night mix, and the guitar solo's drier. I like this track. It's catchy. 3 minutes 30. It's the shortest track on the album. It was a hit single. This album had 4 hits, 2 monster hits and 2 pretty good hits. Quite unusual on this. Sykes does whammies, so that was one of the weird things when I first heard this. Is John Sykes a Les Paul player, but what he used for guitar for the whammies, I don't know. And then if we'd seen him play this live, what guitar he'd have got out to do all that, because he's doing some quite high harmonics, up here at the end of the neck, and doing a woo sort of horsey kind of whammies. And the solo's kind of not that tasteful on this. It's got some atonal, tritone bits, crazy tapping and whammies, but it's kind of pretty crazy. I mean, I would describe some of John Sykes' solos on this album as kind of, he just fucking goes for it. So, like a track I like. Then you got Looking for Love, which I think finished the original side one. Again, a lot of songs are loving the title. Good power ballad. Again, it's just some whammy slurring on this Sykes. Cool dive band, good shredding solo. It's got some good track pinch harmonics as well. Really good vocal from Coverdale. Obviously, he can do this sort of stuff in his sleep. Croony ballad. Again, a good album track. I like it. Then side 2, Crying in the Rain. So this, this is one of the reboot songs that have been on Saints and Sinners, and they redid it for this album. So Sykes basically energizes with some crazy pinch harmonics, takes away the kind of bluesiness and turns it more into a metal track. Big double bass guitar solo with the double kick drums going. Really epic solo by Sykes, obviously showing off his two-handed tapping, which he kind of really explored on Cold Sweat to Thin Lizzy. Coverdale has a great vocal, just some unnecessary screams for me. But a classic Whitesnake, classic live track, and one they still do. So 5 minutes 37. Then the big ballad, Is This Love. This is actually one of the tracks you hear all the time that I really like. I really like Is This Love. I think it's a really classic power ballad. Fantastic neck pickup solo from Sykes. So Sykes is one of those players, there's that great Ozzy Osbourne quote that he doesn't like the neck pickup because it sounds like a cow. And it does if people have a bass, not a weak vibrato or weak string bends. But John Sykes, along with Key Marcello, is one of those guys who go on the neck pickup, get the width on the vibrato, particularly Sykes, and let those notes sing. And that's kind of one of his trademarks of Key Marcello's, that neck pickup sound. So I love the song, still really like it, and love the solo. And then you got Straight for the Heart. It's a bit of a throwaway track, this, kind of a bit of a wah-wah solo. It was never massive on that. It's probably my least favourite cut album. And then probably the top deep cut, Don't Turn Away. Nice kind of ballad intro. The snare sounds dreadful on this, really bishy, but great solo, nice mature solo. I'd say the solo on this is one of the most mature on this. John Sykes really plays for the song, and he just does a cool kind of melodic bluesy solo. Really good. And again, he kind of brings back some of those nice inversions, triads, upper triads on the end section. Great vocal, of course. So that's that track. And then it finished with Children of the Night, I think, the original vinyl. Again, this is like a stupid hair metal track. I really like it. John Sykes did a song called Black Hearted Woman on the Blue Murder album, which sounds very similar. Crazy solo with more whammies, but Are You Ready to Rock, Children of the Night? Fag packet lyrics from Coverdale. But I like it. So Here I Go Again. There's 2 versions of this. Now I can't remember how this sort of ended up, whether it was on the original vinyl or whether it got put on later. You guys who watch this would know more about that. But there's basically the one that has the keyboard intro, Here I Go Again. I don't know if to call it 87, but there's a Here I Go Again 87 remix which comes straight in with the kind of dun 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 guitar. But what's interesting about these tracks is the one that starts with the keyboards has Adrian Vandenberg doing the solo. So the reason for this is Sykes didn't want to play a bluesy track, but by this point he'd fallen out with Coverdale. Basically, paranoia had set in. Coverdale was getting reports back and getting invoices from the studio, from Sykes, Mike Stone, from the company. He was, racked up $1 million of debt this album, and he heard rumours that Sykes was trying to move himself sideways now. John Sykes had denied this, because obviously Coverdale didn't go back in the studio until his voice was better. The upshot was him and Sykes parted company, but all the guitars were done, bar some other stuff they wanted redoing. And Mike Stone was given the boot. Mike Stone actually was quite renowned for having a bit of a drink, probably to come to alcoholism. And then they got Keith Olsen in, so a lot of the tales of this album come from Keith Olsen, but I think he likes to put the cat among the pigeons, so we'll take it with Pure. He's passed away as well. So they went to Goodnight LA Studios to do these. This is Keith Olsen's studio. Obviously, Keith Olsen's done Rooms by Fleetwood Mac, Lynch Mob's second album, various stuff. Really, but more of a polished radio hard rock producer, but really good. So there's the Vandenberg solo, which is all right. If you listen to Here I Go Again remix on the Rock album recently, it sounds quite dry, and I think you hear some of the kind of flaws in the playing. But the other solo on the one where the guitar comes straight in, which I think the Here I Go Again '87 remix is the best version of this song. That features Dan Huff. So Dan Huff came in and did the eighth notes pedaling. I mean, I think Kim Folsom, maybe Sykes was still involved. He said, "Well, can John come back and pedal me some eighth notes?" And Sykes didn't want to. So it goes dun 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 dun, and it really drives the song more. It's got a great solo by Dan Huff. If you're not familiar with Dan Huff's work with Giant, he's one of the great session players. Kind of replaced Steve Lukather as the rock session player when Steve Lukather sort of pulled away from that. Fantastic technique, beautiful vibrato tone. One of the great pro musicians. So then as you go, Gonna Break My Heart Again, which is kind of bonus track, it was on B-sides and then it was put on bonus track on CD, which I'm not really that fussed about. So, I like this album. Obviously, it's one of those hit albums. You've got those 4 big tracks and you've got, a couple of live tracks, Bad Boys and Crying in the Rain, that get played live. But I think what was interesting to me, I used to go on a forum years ago, Dinosaur Rock Guitar, and there was a lot of love for John Sykes, and I was like, oh, that's quite weird, because, I'm into like Malmsteen or whatever, and then I realised that, Sykes, as a guitar player, sold more records off one album than a lot of guitar players with top shredding credentials sold in the 80s. This album sold 8 million in America. Or was it 6? Well, when I looked, like the certified sales are 9.34 million. But that was just what was certificated. Shipped wise, it could have shipped 12, 14 million this album. So, if it was on YouTube now, it would get several billion hits. I mean, John Sykes was one of the most heard guitarists playing this shred style. He's selling more records here on this album than Vile Satch or, Zakk Wylde or Dimebag would do later on, or George Lynch and stuff like that. Although those guys would sell, kind of 7, 10 million albums overall. Just off one album, he reached a lot of people. Obviously, Coverdale sacked the band, finished the album, and he got his all-star team in, Tommy Aldridge, Rudy Zarzo, Vivian Campbell, Adrian Vandenberg. And that was when I first saw the video for Still at the Night. I was like, well, that doesn't look, is that John Sykes? I thought it was with Vandenberg long hair. And I was trying to spot who was who. I couldn't work out what was going on, and I was shocked by the sound. I was like, Christ, is this Whitesnake? But I remember the excitement when I watched Vivian Campbell's fingers going up the fretboard fast on that fantastic solo. When you actually hear them do it live, I don't think Campbell or Vandenberg totally pulled off the Sykes stuff that well, simply for the reason they didn't have the chops. Viv Campbell's got like fast hammer and pull-offs. He's a great player, and Vandenberg's got a nice wide vibrato. But between them, they're not the player Sykes is, or the writer or creator. Sykes is a great writer, great singer. So that was one of the things, I kind of felt when you listen to those. Just mention quickly, there's a 1988 remix of Give Me All Your Love, which Vivian Campbell is a solo on. If you watch a video for that, he's got a polka dot Kramer Night Swan that was endorsing at the time. And he did some quite cool whammy slurring, and at that point, Viv Campbell was still using a whammy bar, which he was kind of using in Dio. Obviously got Def Leppard after later on. I'm trying to think if there's anything more I can say about it. That was it. I forgot to mention Coverdale did use Ron Neverson for a bit to do the vocals to start off, but it just wasn't happening. And then the first thing he sang was Still in the Night, which is what Olsen got him to do, and he did 2 takes. Apparently he vomited. Maybe he was feeling really nervous because of the sinus thing, but basically they cut it from 2 takes. So obviously the guys, you find out with a lot of singers, the really great singers, you often hear that, like, once they're prepped, warmed up, it is the first, second, third take. It's only when you're really struggling high notes or there's perfectionism in a performance where they do takes of little bits and things like that. So I think I've covered that. I'm just looking at my notes. But a massive selling album. And in that era when metal, hair metal, whatever you want to call it, was mainstream, basically from the advent of Quiet Riot and Metal Health in 83, going right to kind of 1990, maybe creeping into 91, whether you want to include Guns N' Roses in that, Skid Row, whatever. But it probably got bigger than it should have, or ever should have done. There was probably commercial compromises, obviously, on this with Whitesnake, the videos, the big hair, the videos with Tawny Katane and stuff like that. It was all about selling a music that's not always been mainstream, and it succeeded, but a pipe price was paid. And it's never been, although it's a big global force, it's never been as big in terms of like unit sales or streams as it is now, as it was back then. But a key record for sure. 35 years old today, Whitesnake 1987. Remember to share and subscribe if you like these. I do these on my Edward Box Guitar Tuition channel. If you're interested in kind of film stuff and other stuff about other bands and that, you can go to my Bot Brack channel, Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid. But it's there's a kind of link in this YouTube channel. But I'll see you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye.